children, I hope you're all well. It is absolutely gorgeous outside. So it is late on Thursday afternoon, and I'm recording this so that it goes live onto Facebook on Sunday at 4 o'clock. Sundays are quite a busy day for me, I will be honest. But also, these videos go on YouTube as well. So if you would prefer to view there, that's absolutely fine. It's all part of the King's Church Colburn. So, I hope you've had a really nice week at school, and I hope you're looking forward to your weekend ahead. I wonder if you've got any plans, especially with the weather being so much nicer. Let's jump into today's lesson. And today's lesson is all about being faithful in marriage. Okay, now I'm going to bring up my screen like I usually do, and I'll make myself small so that you can see the screen really clearly. Okay. So let's look at that first picture. Okay, so me and Shannon both have an iPhone 6, which is an iPhone on that top left-hand corner. This iPhone makes phone calls and it does text messages. I can check my emails on it, and we've got access to social media on it. So it does pretty well as a phone. But then sometimes I see other people with the newest iPhone, which is the iPhone 12. And sometimes I wish I could have an iPhone 12. Would it make much difference though? Not really. I can still do my phone calls. I can still do text messages. I could check my email, and I have access to social media. So they both have the same functionality, but I just want the newer one. Let's look at another thing. Shall we think about maybe a situation where that has happened and then you think afterwards, maybe I shouldn't have done that. And you may have had an argument and you may have said some unkind words to somebody, or maybe you ate all the cake after mum said, don't eat all the cake. So, or maybe somebody in the house has said, don't take this belongs to me, please leave it in my room, and you take it anyway. And then you think, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Then what do you do about that? Do you then try to correct what you've done? Or maybe you just kind of try and hide it or deny it. So, King David wanted something which belonged to another man, and he was determined to have it at whatever cost. He wanted it, and he was going to have it. But then King David tried to cover up something he did, which broke God's commandments. So let's bring up the next screen. Okay, so my readings today are going to be from the International Children's Bible again. Okay, and I'm going to start off by reading Samuel, 2 Samuel, and it is chapter 11, and I'm looking at verses 2 to 4. Okay, so I'm just going to move my Bible to that section. So, one evening, King David got up from his bed. He walked around on his roof of his palace, because the roofs used to be flat then. While he was on the roof, he saw a woman bathing. She was very beautiful. So David sent his servants to find out who she was. A servant answered, that woman is Bathsheba, daughter of Eliam. She is the wife of Uriah the Hittite. David sent messengers to bring Bathsheba to him. So he saw another lady that belonged to another man. She was already married. Okay. David saw Bathsheba from his village on his roof of his palace, and he thought that she was very beautiful. beautiful and he wanted her. So we can see that in this picture. There he is on the roof of his palace, and there's Bathsheba in the window, and she's just had a bath. So her husband Uriah was one of the king's guards and was away fighting in the war. David forgot about God's law. So let's look in the Bible again, and we're looking at Exodus, and it is chapter 20, and it is verse 14. You must not be guilty of adultery. Now, adultery is when it means to be loyal in a relationship. So if you already have a boyfriend or girlfriend, or already have a husband or wife, then you are to remain loyal to that partner. Okay, that means that you should not have any intentions of building a relationship with somebody else. Okay. King David was determined to get Bathsheba, whatever happened. So covetousness, where they kind of got to know each other, that turned into adultery as he and Bathsheba started relationship, knowing that she was the wife of another man. He knew his action was wrong, but he didn't care. So we know that God gave his law to show his people how they should live. Marriage is a solemn agreement between a man and a woman before God. Breaking his law has serious consequences, like any of the commandments. When you want to do what you know is wrong and then do it anyway, it's a sin, isn't it? And it upsets God, and it also may affect other people in a bad way. Later, Bathsheba told David that she was going to have a baby. He had a plan. So, this is where we are going to be reading verse 15. Just let me get to that in the Bible. So, we are reading from 2 Samuel chapter 11, and then it is verse 15. In the letter David wrote, put Uriah in the front lines where the fighting is worse, then leave him there alone. Let him be killed in battle. So Uriah was to be put in the front of the battle. Joab, the commander, who would leave Uriah in the fiercest fighting so that he could be killed. And we can see that in this picture here. So King David planned for Uriah, which was Bathsheba's husband, to be at the front of a battle so that he would be killed. So we know that that succeeded, and now Uriah is dead, and King David is now a murderer. He intentionally made sure this person died. Did King David care? No, he didn't. He wanted Bathsheba, and the only way he was going to get her to himself was to remove Uriah out of the way. When the death of Uriah was confirmed, David married Bathsheba. So now we're going to go on to 2 Samuel chapter 11, and we're reading verse 26. When Bathsheba heard that her husband was dead, she cried for him. She obviously loved him. She married him. Husband and wives promise to be faithful to one another. That promise should always be kept. So we know that adultery breaks laws. And this week's verse to learn is Exodus chapter 20, verse 14. You shall not commit adultery. Small sins lead to greater sins, don't they? Every day you need to guard against doing wrong, which could lead to worse acts as you try to cover them up. So King David saw that Bathsheba was upset, So he wouldn't have told her that he had Uriah killed. So he tried to hide that. God sent Nathan to show David how seriously he had sinned. Nathan told him a parable. So we know a parable is a relatable story. So how do you think King David react? Let's have a look. We're going to be looking again at 2 Samuel chapter 11, and we are reading verse 5, and we will read all the way through to the end of 7. Okay. David became very angry at the rich man. He said to Nathan, "As surely as the Lord lives, the man who did this should die. He must pay for the lamb 4 times for doing such a thing. He had no mercy." And there he is relating to Uriah. Then Nathan said to David, "You are the man. This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I appointed you king of Israel. I saved you from Saul." So God had already done good by King David, and King David went ahead and he committed sin and broke one of God's commandments. David realized that his adultery had not only violated the marriage between Uriah and Bathsheba, because they were married, remember, but he had broken one of God's laws as well. And David was truly sorry. He repented of his sin and asked God to forgive him. Let's read that in 2 Samuel chapter 11 and verse 13. No, it's chapter 12. Sorry, I do apologize. Chapter 12, verse 13. Then David said to Nathan, "I have sinned against the Lord." Nathan answered, "The Lord has taken away your sin. You will not die." So God has forgiven King David for his sin. Okay. God forgave him, but the effects of his sin would continue for many years to come. So God will always forgive the people that choose to repent. God knows about our sins, and if we are really truly sorry, he will forgive you if you just ask. David saw, so let's look at that last picture there. Okay, and we can see there in the circle that is Nathan, and we can see on the left hand side that is King David, and he is repenting of his sin. So David saw what he wanted and used his power to take it, which led to murder. David's actions were wrong in God's sight, and he broke God's commandment. And in this case, it was Exodus chapter 20, verse 14. You shall not commit adultery. He knew it was a sin. It affected other people too. There was Bathsheba, who then ended up weeping for her dead husband. There was Uriah and the soldiers who killed him. The baby that Bathsheba was pregnant with, and later on, the rest of David's family. God's law shows people how to live. Marriage promises are serious and should be kept. So, should we go over this? Yeah? Okay. Let's have a brief summary. So, looking at our first picture, and we've got the text box to the right hand side of that picture, and it says that Bathsheba was very, what? Can you remember? That's the one. She was very beautiful. Let's look at picture 2. Oh dear. Who was it that was murdered? Let's look at the text box to the left of that picture. David had blank killed. Can you remember the name of Bathsheba's husband? Well done. Yes, it's Uriah. Well done. Let's look at the third picture. And there we can see the person repenting of his sin to Nathan and God. Who was that person? When we look at the text box to the left-hand side, who was it that repented of his sin? Yes, it was King David. Well done. So, our verse to learn this week is you shall not commit adultery. So we need to be, when we look at that text box to the right, it's be blank in marriage. What's that blank word? Be something in marriage. That's the one. It's faithful. Well done, children. You did really well. Let's bring you back to me. I'm going to make that small and I'm going to make myself bigger again. Here we go. And the sun's still shining. It's still glorious outside. So, I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. And as usual, you will see the worksheets and maybe some quiz sheets going up. And we will have the verse to learn reminder throughout the week and a new song. And if you have any questions, please do feel free to get in touch. You can do it, get an adult to maybe drop me a message through Facebook or maybe the email address, which is faith.chasers@kingschurchcolburn.co.uk. Okay, so until next time, have a lovely weekend, have a lovely week, and I shall see you again soon. Bye.